I ran to my dermatologist and I thought, I need to tell her. I was like, I know the answer.
I know the cure.
It's diet. She looked at me and she said, no, diet has nothing to do with your skin, unfortunately.
What actually matters when it comes to the building a healthy microbiome? And how is it that that's our set in the brain?
The guts of people with depression do not have enough flowers.
And what's one wellness trend you wish would disappear forever? You completely disagree with, you don't like it.
It's the calories in,
Calories in and calories out. Yeah. It's not about mathematics in this case. Hello everyone, welcome back to Nadia's Lab. Today, I'm very grateful to be joined by Olga Hamilton. Olga is a famous clinical nutritionist and she's really an expert in what she does. So Olga, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure, Nadia. Thank you for inviting me.
I remember meeting you a couple of years ago, and after meeting you, I asked you to have a coffee, and we went for a little coffee. It was in matcha that we had, and you told me about your inspiring journey. And what I really like about you is not only that you have the knowledge and the experience, but you also have a very touching personal story to it, which kind of combines with your career path. So I know that you specialize in weight management, hormonal imbalances, gut disorders, mood imbalances, anti-aging, and skin conditions. There's so much to talk about it here. I think this episode can be 5 hours, but I'm going to try and pack it up. To make it as interesting as we can. And then obviously anyone who wishes to get in touch with you and get more information and maybe some kind of personalized consultation with you, will give them the information on how to get in touch. But I just wanted for the beginning, so what made you passionate about nutrition and what's kind of your story behind you and your career?
Okay, thank you. I was always interested in nutrition and healthy eating, coming from Ukraine, like probably many Eastern European ladies, we always are all about healthy eating and lifestyle and exercise and, looking good and style and all of that stuff. Yeah. So I guess it's in our blood. But then I moved to the UK. Well, this year is going to be 20 years ago. I moved to the UK, to London, and started working for a cosmetic company, Estee Lauder. And I was working in the office. And then I started getting some weird skin issue, which I didn't know what it was in the beginning, but then I ended up at the dermatologist's office. First, my GP had a look at it and said, well, it's eczema or dermatitis. And I never had that before. So it was really, really surprising to me that why did it start? Obviously, it was a big change. Like, it was a change of the country, food, water, environment. Everything does affect our skin and our health, so that's for sure. But I had no clue about these influences, right? Of course, at the time, we knew that healthy eating is important to get all of our vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and everything else, right? But I never knew about the connection between eating or food that we eat and our skin health, for example. I had no idea, right? So, and since then, my kind of health journey began because my eczema was so bad that it covered my face.
Oh, wow.
Imagine working for the cosmetic company every day, going to the office, and I couldn't even put my makeup on because it was like I didn't know what was irritating my skin. I was thinking maybe it's cosmetics, maybe it's makeup. So we've done lots of different testing with my dermatologist. Obviously, they put me on steroid creams, which obviously, things the skin, makes it kind of easier or faster to age, which is a very bad side effect from all of this medication, right? And then they were also offering me other immune suppressant medication, which suppresses your immune system. So it does not react, right? You probably know about this medication, this creams, right, that they use nowadays. And then the next one they will go into try was light therapy, which is skin cancer is a side effect as well. So that's all they had. They could offer me, unfortunately. So I then went to do hypnotherapy for a year, acupuncture for a year, then I also tried homeopathy for a year. That was through NHS as well. That was 2-year treatment, right? nothing helped.
Okay.
Nothing put me into remission. I mean, it was getting a little bit better, a little worse. I didn't want to use any steroid creams non-stop, right? I would only use them when it was completely impossible to tolerate.
Yeah, it's a
right?
last resort.
Yeah, it was really, really bad because the eczema was a wet type. So, when it cracks, leaks, infects, and bleeds. So that was so bad, right? Anyway, so to cut the long story short, I found this book on Amazon, which was called How to Cure Your Eczema.
Oh, wow.
Imagine my surprise. And it was just a very simple dietary advice that removed sugar, gluten, dairy, tea, and coffee. That's all I remember. And because that was my diet,
Yeah.
consisted mostly of those foods, right?
My diet. Wow.
So this is why when I changed my diet, I had to use other foods, right, to put there instead. So it was protein, and it was essential fats, and it was fiber from vegetables, right? So I really tried, and guess what happened? My eczema went into remission for the first time in years, and I could not believe it. It was like a miracle. So I ran to my dermatologist, right? At the time I was in Whitechapel, it was a big hospital there. So, and it was one of the best dermatologists in London, right? And I remember her reception room. There were people like bleeding and like covered in skin issues like psoriasis and eczema. There was really, really bad cases. And I thought, I need to tell her. I ran to her office and was like, I know the answer.
I know the cure.
It's diet. She looked at me and she said, no, diet has nothing to do with your skin, unfortunately. So it will come back. Like the winter's coming, your eczema will come back.
Oh, that's so demoralizing.
I was so upset. So yes, and she was right. So 9 months later, even though I was still doing the same diet, and yes, it was winter, my eczema did come back.
Okay. So diet helped,
But
but not long term.
yes, but I understood then that it was something because my eczema didn't come back, it wasn't as severe. So, and I understood that obviously I still believe there is something in that. There was something in it. I just had no clue what I was doing with this diet. I didn't know how it worked. So, and that was 2008, and it was financial crisis. I got made redundant from my financial job at SLR. And I cried for 2 weeks. I didn't know what to do with myself, right? I thought it was the end of the world. So, and then I got paid redundancy money because I was there for like 3 years. And I took the money and went to study nutrition.
Oh, wow.
That was my turning point because I was completely convinced there was something in there. And do you know what? Now I'm thinking if it wasn't for that redundancy,
You would have
wouldn't.
never
No.
become who you are now.
No, absolutely not. So we
Wow.
have to take our disappointments for good luck. Now bring it.
Yeah, turn them into
Yeah.
success stories, which is what you've done. No, that's brilliant. But and I just when you mentioned like the skin conditions, it can be so difficult. It can be so difficult for patients having to live with them on a daily basis. And like you said, some of them that affect your face or other very visible parts of the body and not being able to cover them with makeup and everything. And even having to put makeup every day, it can be really bad. And unfortunately, some of the treatments like steroid creams, they come with so many side effects and don't even get me started on this like immunosuppressor medications. So it is not it is not an area that I feel like medicine have developed well enough that it has appropriate treatment. But we're going to come back to skin. What I was going to touch base on gut microbiome. It seems like everyone's talking about it, and I know you had a TED talk in which you mentioned that our gut microbiome is our second brain. And I remember when I was studying in UCL, gut microbiome was a huge topic, and we learned about something called fecal microbiota transplantation, FMT, which is basically a medical procedure to transplant a small amount of stool, feces, from a healthy colon into a diseased colon in order to treat some rare diseases, because it is believed that the healthy healthy feces contain like lots and lots of good bacteria. And this is actually it's under investigation, and it is used for treating some severe C. diff infections. So I want to cut through the fluff, and I wanted to ask you what actually matters when it comes to the building a healthy microbiome, and how is it that that's our set in the brain?
Right. I may have to correct you here.
Okay.
I think we think of it as a first brain.
Oh,
Not the second brain.
it's our first brain.
So, I mean, it's very, very surprising because only in the last, say, 10, 15 years, maybe, right, we are beginning to understand how important our gut bacteria is for overall health and nutrition. It's not just for the gut health, because gut health is actually central to your well-being in the future. It's not anymore what you eat, right? Of course, it's important to get a very healthy diet that gives you all the nutrients that you need. But what's more important is how you digest and absorb your nutrients. That's more important, right? What's actually getting into your blood. This is why when we have a new client and we're looking at the overall health picture, I always start with the gut. Is it effective enough? Does it give you, does it digest the food that you eat? Does it get all the nutrients into your blood or not? And gut microbiome is extremely important because this is potentially something that is determining that function, right? And there's so many factors that influence the health of your gut microbiome. So imagine your gut microbiome is a beautiful garden.
Okay.
You have flowers, bushes, trees, but you also have weeds, right? And you know how quickly one weed can grow out of control and almost kill the whole bed of flowers. And then you ask why, right? Because it takes all the sunshine, all of the nutrients from the soil, all of the water, right? But it can also deposit toxins in the soil. And these are the toxins that you can absorb. You probably know about the gut-brain connection, right?
Yes.
So this is how they communicate via those chemicals, specific metabolites, hormones that are produced by the bacteria. So by looking at what they produce, we can tell whether they are beneficial for us or not so beneficial for us. While gut bacteria can be beneficial when it's growing at normal numbers and produce something that is considered beneficial for us.
Yeah.
And then if it starts growing out of control, that becomes a pathogen. Right? Because it giving you an imbalance in the ecosystem. So what we do know now, there are specific, we can actually see which diseases or conditions you're going to develop by looking at gut microbiome patterns.
Okay.
We now know autistic pattern. We now know which bacteria can contribute to skin conditions, to cardiovascular health, to Alzheimer's, dementia. So there's so much research going on, and it's fascinating. Now, we're seeing really big problem with gut microbiome diversity nowadays.
Okay. As in from one person to another? Or
no, we're losing diversity of gut microbiome in our Western world.
okay.
So they are disappearing from our guts.
Why is that happening? You think from the diet, from unhealthy habits, or just
I think
genetic?
it's so many
genetic
different things.
regulations?
It's diet, yes. It's the we're not eating the diversity of the diet that we're supposed to eat. It's the lack of fiber in the diet. So if we are actually not as a whole country, we're not getting enough fiber when the government does all the research or when they study what people eat and then they kind of do an analysis of that. I can't remember the stats, but I think it's only 10% of the population that are actually achieving 30 grams of fiber per day. This is a minimum amount. Fiber is what feeds our gut bacteria. So if you're not feeding them and the environment becomes harsh for them to survive, they're just going to die. Now, it's also the overuse of antibiotics.
It's a huge one.
It's a huge problem, yeah. And then there's chemicals in the diet, right? In processed foods, emulsifiers, artificial sweeteners, other medication, things like you probably know about the microplastics issue that we're having.
Microplastics, yeah.
So all of this, I've recently found a research where where they connect microplastic exposure to IBS.
Oh,
It
wow.
can cause IBS. Can you believe that? I didn't know that.
No, me
So,
neither.
all of this, unfortunately,
Is affecting our microbiome. Okay, so it's not only about what we eat as nutrition, it's also about how we absorb and how we digest.
That's right.
Okay, that's amazing. And since we talked about the good bacteria, what's your thought on probiotics and fermented foods? Do you think that they really help? Especially like probiotics. Like if someone's an antibiotic, I'd always as a pharmacist suggest them to take a probiotic as well alongside with, so that to keep the good bacteria. Do you think that that's actually a thing? Should people be considering probiotics or?
Yes, absolutely, no question about that.
Okay.
It's the minimum that you can do, while you're on antibiotics or after antibiotics.
Okay. And in terms of gut health influencing mood and mental health, I saw somewhere, and I believe was one of your TED Talks or articles about you, it said that, eating diets rich in fiber helps, not keep obviously cure depression, but helps in people with depression. Is that true?
Yes, that's right. So when I did research for my TED Talk, which was, oh my gosh, 4 years ago now, it was before
Time flies.
COVID, time flies. So I don't remember from the top of my head, but I think I've discovered that the guts of people with depression do not have enough flowers. So they're depressed. So this is what I found, and I was kind of consistent through all different studies, research articles, different universities, different countries. They were showing very, very similar results. So now, if I do a gut microbiome test and I look at the whole kind of presence of the flowers in the gut, so I can see that all of the beneficial ones like lactobacillus acidophilus, like bifidobacterium, they're either absent completely from the guts, which can happen, or very, very low. So I don't even need to know the person. I know they're either anxious or depressed or low in mood. Because these are the flowers that give you specific hormones that make you happy.
Oh, wow.
That's how it works. So it's because the constant communication between the different metabolites that go into your brain. So one of the most important of them that have been researched a lot is called BDNF.
BDNF.
If you've seen it in there, and brain derives neurotrophic factor.
Okay.
So, and this is something that can actually improve connections between neurons in your brain, right? And something that would, it's produced by beneficial bacteria and then gets absorbed through your brain blood barrier, right? So that's one of the mechanisms that I looked in my TED talk and I showed it to the audience. So yes, indeed, improving your gut microbiome, diversity, richness, and quantity of the beneficial bacteria can improve your mood. There is no question. Yes.
Okay, that's impressive, honestly. And moving on from mood and microbiome to weight loss and some nutrition myths, people are obsessed with calories in and calories out and counting calories. I wanted to ask you: is it really that simple? Is it really one way street, like reducing calories in to lose weight? And what do you think are some common mistakes that people who are trying to lose weight are making?
Well, this is a huge topic. Yes, we could talk a whole hour about that. Okay, just to give you some basic pointers, right?
Okay.
So, calories in, calories out has been, a basis of nutritional approach for years, right? And now we're slowly understanding that it's not as simple as that, right?
Yeah.
So there are many, many things that affect our metabolism, let's just say. So first of all, if someone comes to the clinic and they present with weight gain and they say it's resistant and they don't know what to do, they've been counting calories in and out, they've been exercising, but it's not working at all.
Okay.
So what I first of all look at is thyroid.
Thyroid.
Yes. So you probably know obviously about all of the thyroid hormones that we test for. So the main one is thyroid stimulating hormone. So this is what your GPs actually can test, right? And so thyroid is a gland that is located here near the bottom of the neck, and it produces metabolism hormones. So the active hormone that we need for metabolism is T3. It's called T3.
Yeah.
And then it's nothing to do with calories at all, because for the production of that hormone, you need nutrients. So it goes back to nutrients like iodine, you probably know selenium, iron. And unfortunately, many females are more likely to develop hypothyroidism compared to males.
Yes.
And they become depleted in nutrients, and this is how they can develop hypothyroidism.
And hypothyroidism leads to weight gain.
Weight gain.
Yeah.
So one of the other symptoms is fatigue.
Fatigue, yeah.
Hair loss, unfortunately, yeah. So many females present with that, and it's not that rare anymore.
No, it's quite common.
It's very common, yes.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing that we look at. Now, the second thing that I would look at would be blood sugar regulation.
Yeah.
If thyroid is working really well, then we look at how your body is coping with removal of the glucose from your blood. So all of the obsession with the glucose monitoring
devices.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is excellent for weight.
Yeah.
For weight regulation or monitoring, right? Because look, we are so very different. You probably heard that my belief is there is no perfect diet for everyone, right? Because we are all very different. Whatever works for me doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you in exactly the same way. No.
Yeah.
So in order for us to find your perfect diet, we need to know as much information about you as possible. Your genetics, right? Because the genetic predisposition affects, for example, type 2 diabetes risk, right? This is when your body stops regulating your blood sugar efficiently. And like, for example, the difference is I eat an apple and you eat the same apple. You produce 1 unit of insulin, right? That is required to remove 25 grams of sugar, which is 1 apple, out of your blood. Right? And I produce, because I have genetic differences in how the whole process works, I will need to produce 5 units of insulin. You see the difference?
Yeah.
Insulin is a fat storage hormone. So the more insulin we produce throughout the day, the more weight or the more fat we store, right?
Yeah.
So and then this kind of whole insulin production and then fat storage can be influenced by genetic differences between us. And then I would need to go on a very low carbohydrate diet. And you don't need to do that. You see, this is the difference. And then calories in, calories out. I mean, you probably know it doesn't work, because if you eat 1,000 calories with broccoli, right? Just broccoli, 1,000 calories. I don't even know how many kilos of broccoli you have to eat. Or then you drink, 1,000 calories of Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
That will completely change hormonal response in your body, and that will determine whether you put on weight or not.
Okay. So it's not just about calories in, calories out.
Absolutely.
And people seem to be hyper-focused on protein intake. You know, all these gym bras, and I remember even I had a personal trainer for a bit, and all he was telling me was like, go home and eat chicken. And I know that protein is good, but do you think that people are exaggerating in focusing so much on eating protein? And do we need as much protein as people out there are saying?
Right. So, I'm constantly checking the literature just to see where we are currently with this question, because the rule that I follow with all of my clients is that the minimal requirement would be the same as your weight in kilograms. So, for example, if I'm 50 kilos, I need to eat at least 50 grams of protein per day.
Okay.
Obviously, divided into meals, not in one go, right? Ideally, because it's better to absorb it, right, into smaller kind of portions. So, 50-gram protein, that's probably about, so let's see, 100 grams of chicken per eat, right, will give you about 25 grams of protein.
Okay.
So it's about 200 grams of chicken per day.
Yeah.
That's a minimal requirement, right?
Okay.
Now, you can also obviously get protein from all of the other animal sources of protein, which is meat, fish, eggs, dairy products, seafood, produce. That's all of that is a really great sources of protein. Now, if you exercising,
Okay.
or if you are trying to lose weight, for example, then yes, your requirement does increase. Okay. Now, because protein is very, it gives you a lot of satiety, right? It helps to control appetite. So let's say, for example, if you eat protein meal or carbohydrate meal can, because of it gives you ups and downs on blood sugar.
Yeah.
It can stimulate appetite and make you overeat. Protein does not do that, not as much. So this is why it's more kind of steady for the blood sugar regulation. So if you really need to focus on your blood sugar regulation, if you have an issue with your appetite control, then protein is your friend. Now, if you train and if you're trying to grow muscle mass, that's probably your requirement can go as high as 2.5 grams of protein per kilo of weight.
Okay.
And then it
That's a
becomes
lot.
really high
That's a
intake.
lot.
Yes. But then again, I see all of this recent obsession with carnivore diets, and I don't really like it because it excludes fiber. And
That's a big issue.
yes. And then another thing that it can do is because when we digest protein, animal protein, we will accumulate. So when we break down protein, we accumulate ammonia in blood, right?
That's true.
Ammonia is very acidic, right? And it needs to be filtered out by your kidneys, right, out of your body.
Yeah.
And then if you use the carnivore diet for a short period of time, maybe it's not a problem. But I've seen clients coming through my door 6, 9, a year, right? 6, 9 months or a year on carnivore diet only. And I check their kidney function.
It's not good.
It's not good, yes. So you can really kill your kidneys, right? Ruin your kidneys with this kind of diet. So if you need to increase your protein, make sure that you buffer it with vegetables. I usually go with 1:2 ratio. So 100 grams of chicken, 200 grams of vegetables. Also very important for acid-base balance, protection of your bones, osteoporosis, especially important for women.
It's amazing. Actually, I didn't think it that way, but you're right. The buildup of ammonia and it can affect your kidneys, and that can then have a lot of other effects on the body. It's really impressive, honestly. And do you think that eating late at night, is this a myth or is this true? Eating late at night, does that make you lose weight? Gain weight, sorry. Other way around.
Yes, short answer is yes, I would say.
Okay.
Obviously, it will depend what you eat, and it will depend on your total diet throughout the day, right? Your blood sugar regulation, I would say. But it's generally a very good idea to stop eating for the day about 3 hours before you're supposed to go to bed. Right.
So 3 hours, have
3
dinner,
hours.
and then 3 hours.
3 hours.
Okay.
Yes.
Fine. And we kind of touched base on this, but what advice would you give to someone who's desperately trying to lose weight? So is it basically eating protein, to 1:2 ratio in vegetables, but also, like you said, maybe getting checked first to check the thyroid function, blood glucose, and all of that before going on any diets?
To remove all of the guesswork, I would say, then yes, definitely check your thyroid, check your blood sugar regulation. So useful to wear a glucose monitor just to see, because again, we will have a different response to different types of carbohydrates. Again, apple could be good, right, in terms of the blood sugar and the spike, but for some people it could give you a really massive spike, and then you have to be careful with apples then, right? The same about oats or sweet potato, which are considered very good, healthy type of carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, but not for everyone again. So responses will be very individual. So do that, do the thyroid check, and I would also potentially do the genetic test. Right?
Okay.
So because genetic genes really can predispose you to weight gain. in the way that they will interfere or potentially not going to be as efficient in terms of the blood sugar regulation or fat burning, right? So our body prefers to burn glucose for energy. This is what comes from carbohydrate digestion absorption. So it doesn't matter what type of carbohydrates you eat, right? Your body will break it down into simple glucose molecules. That's it, right? The speed with which it enters your blood, this is what really matters. And the amount of insulin that you produce in response to that carbohydrate also matters for weight regulation. But the total amount of carbohydrates still equals the amount of glucose that goes into your blood, right? That your body has to deal with afterwards. Now, when you want to lose weight or you have a lot of fat stores that you want your body to burn, and you have to think about not potentially giving your body available glucose. So reduction of glucose intake, carb intake potentially would help. So this is the only way when your body will have to go into your fat stores and burn them for energy. If you give your body available carbohydrates, it does not have a reason to go into your fat stores. It doesn't need to. It's easier to burn glucose. So you have to switch your body from glucose burning to fat burning. Intermittent fasting, low carb diets can do that for you. But again, that's a general rule. Now, I'm talking about genetics because genes will influence most of this. Now, we have loads of different types of diets. We go in from keto diets, which is very low carb, right? And very high fat. And then we go on the other end of the spectrum, we have low fat, high carb diets, right? This also can work for people to lose weight. And then there is everything in between. There's Mediterranean diet, which is considered very healthy. So it's half and half, 50-50 carbs, fats, right? So where do you belong on the spectrum? Are you going to try every single diet? It's going to take you ages.
It's going to take a long time.
If you do genetic tests, we can look at the genes that regulate your fat burning and glucose burning. And that will give us a clue in terms of the macronutrient breakdown of the diet that would be perfect for you. As an example, So it helps us. It's a shortcut, yes.
Okay, so someone tries to lose weight, genetic testing to see what kind of diet works best for them.
Yes.
Okay, good. So I was going to touch base on hormones, skin, and anti-aging. We mentioned about eczema and changing foods to help with eczema. But also, how much do hormones affect our weight, mood, and energy, especially for women? And are there any misconceptions around hormonal imbalances? And what's the kind of connection with nutrition as well with our hormones, and how can they help with some conditions, for example, PCOS or any other, like where there's like hormonal misbalance.
Okay, let's break it down a little bit. So there are lots of different hormonal systems in the body. So insulin, weight regulation is one system. Right? So it's glucose burning or removal of glucose from the blood. So this is more relating to weight regulation or weight management. Now, we also have the system of female hormones and male hormones that regulate either female cycle, ovulation, periods, everything else. So this is all different conditions like PCOS, potentially, and then maybe menopause is another one when everything's changing, right? Or different issues with your periods, or maybe if you don't ovulate, or infertility issues, right? So that's another system. And then we also have another kind of hormones like serotonin and dopamine. So they are kind of more neurotransmitters that regulate your mood, right? So all of them, obviously, they can be influenced with nutrition. There's very, very specialized approaches, very tailored approaches. But we first, when we have an issue, let's say someone presents with PCOS, right? They've been diagnosed and they wanted to do nutritional route, right? And try to improve their situation because PCOS can lead to infertility.
Can lead to very common.
Very common. Acne, facial hair, even hair loss on the scalp. So all loads of different issues. So it could be, we need to first understand why this person and how this person developed it. Is it too much androgens, right? Testosterone in the female, for example? Or it could also be driven by insulin, believe it or not, right? And poor blood sugar regulation. So once we identify an issue, we put in strategy to address it. So it's diet, specific supplements. So like myo-inositol is very famous to help improve blood sugar regulation in those cases, right? If it's because of testosterone, then we need to try to reduce your testosterone production, or maybe it's actually the inability to detoxify testosterone. This is why you have higher levels in blood. So we look at liver detoxification pathways. We then will look into endocrine disruptors, all of the xenoestrogens. You probably know about all of them. So all different chemicals in the diet or environment. So, and because they can interfere with the hormonal system. So there are so many different things that we look at.
Okay.
Yeah, so diet obviously does improve. So blood sugar regulation is essential to hormonal regulation. And then we look at nutrient deficiencies as well.
Yeah.
So it's a lot, yes.
It's a journey. If
Yes.
someone, approaches you, there have to be blood tests, consultations,
Yeah.
a lot of different aspects. And what do you think about nutrition and gut health playing a role when it comes to clear skin, maybe acne, or even like anti-aging? Is there like a miracle food or supplement to help with anti-aging?
Uh, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to give you any simple answers.
It's like,
No, it's not as simple as, taking and everyone's obsessed, or NAD plus that everyone's obsessed with today.
Yeah.
I see it as different levels. Okay, so first you have to get your basics right. Right, that's nutrition, hydration, detoxification, right? So we need to make sure that everything's working well. You have good diet, you digest everything, and you eliminate all the toxins. So that's the basics, right? Obviously, sleep comes in there as well. Now, next level is, then we do some specialized testing, and then we improve further if we find some minor but imbalances that are not a disease, but it's kind of out of balance or not optimal. So we bring them back to optimal. And then there is the next level of all of this biohacking and anti-aging supplements and procedures that you do. So I have a lot of clients who do methylation genetic test because they don't have, say, energy, right, or because they heard of it. And when they come and they complete the questionnaires and they see really, really bad diet, and they hope that it's genetic issue. No, it's not. It's the diet. Yeah, you have to start from the basics, please.
Okay.
So there's no point of taking NMN and then have a rubbish diet, because it's not going to give you any benefit whatsoever in terms of anti-aging. But once you get all of the basics right, you can build up on it. And then, yes, NMN and NAD plus and all of the other things that, like resveratrol and oh my God, there are so many really, really cool things that you can take, like astaxanthin you take for skin, collagen, hyaluronic acid. All of this, they do work, but they give you additional percentage improvement that builds up from the basics.
Okay, so first get your basics right. So drink enough water, sleep, no toxins like alcohol, smoking, any obviously drugs, and eating good food. And then consider any supplements and anything like that.
And another very, very important aspect is detoxification, because this is how your body gets rid of all the rubbish, okay? Because yes, some of the rubbish is still going to get into your body, right?
Yeah.
We all know people who run marathons, eat only organic foods, don't ever smoke or drink alcohol, and get cancer at 50, right? But we all know people who do whatever they want and never get cancer. They die at 100 very healthy. So how do you explain that?
That is very true.
So we believe, obviously, the exposure to toxins is really, really important. We all try to minimize our exposure. So it's through the skin, through the, the cosmetics and skincare products, personal care products that you use, like, deodorant with aluminium is a no-no, like all of the different things that you put on your skin, or, even the air quality in the room where you sleep. So everything's super, super important. And of course, the water you drink, the food that you eat. So obviously, this is why it's important to eat organic, right? Because it's less toxins, right? But then what we really believe, and this is the difference between, cancer, no cancer, I suppose, is how your body detoxifies those carcinogens and environmental toxins. This is becoming a big issue because I'm seeing all of the reports about microplastics, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But it's not just microplastics. You probably heard of BPAs, like how toxic they are. So now they banned BPAs. Now they changed it to something else, which is turned out to be more toxic, right?
Oh, wow.
So this is why it's really, really important to kind of look at everything. Now, we do need to make sure that we detoxify, right? So obviously some of these detoxification enzymes, they are genetic. This is why there is a genetic predisposition, cancer susceptibility and stuff. Now, 3 ways how we detoxify: via sweating, right? This is why exercise and saunas are great for us. Now, via drinking water, kidney, urine. So that's another way. And the third one, the most important one, is via liver detox pathways and obviously via stool. This is the most important one. So if you are constipated,
it's really bad.
It's really bad. And by constipation, we mean you need to empty your bowels at least once a day.
Yeah. So I say that 1 to 3 times a day, I think it's normal, and more than 3 times a day is considered diarrhea. But constipation is actually the amount of patients who get admitted unwell because of constipation. We don't take it serious enough, but it is that means something is wrong, and that's going to make you even more unwell.
Yes. And
sorry,
yes.
No, go on, please.
Like I have a lot of clients coming in with acne, right, or with some other skin condition, right, and they are constipated for a week, and that's normal for them. We solve the constipation, got acne gone. That's it. Simple as that.
Yeah, but as you say, it's the toxins.
The toxins are coming out on your skin. Skin is another organ of detoxification, of course.
It's just responding to the toxins. But you mentioned biohacking a bit, and people, the whole anti-aging idea, biohacking their bodies and using ice baths, red light therapy, wearable tech. Do you think that these are all health upgrades and actually beneficial, or are they just expensive toys?
I think some of them, yes, I would use them and they are beneficial, yes. But again, as I said, get the basics right first and then you can build on that, yes. Yeah. I really like the red light therapy. I see a lot of beneficial results, yes. Hyperbaric chambers, everyone's using cryogenic saunas, I think are wonderful. They're really, really great, right? Ice baths. Maybe not for everyone, especially, females who are very stressed, yes. Probably not a great thing to do. So I would say consult a professional before you do any of this. Yeah,
absolutely. And in terms of supplements, are there any supplements you would actually recommend? Or do you think that a lot of supplements out there are, more like a marketing propaganda than actually doing any benefits for us?
I do. I use a lot of supplements in my practice. Yes, absolutely. I use all of this. Obviously, the standard vitamin mineral supplementation. This is something that we would use if we check the blood levels, or and then someone is deficient, for example. So of course, I would use them because this is how you build up a person, right? You correct all of the deficiencies so they feel better, right? Because if you're deficient in basic nutrients, you're going to be flat out on the floor, right? You can't get up in the morning, you feel fatigued, your hair's falling out, you have bad skin, anything that happens.
Yeah.
Now, then there are other supplements that are more interesting. So they are like herbal compounds that we use, like adaptogens, like something that we would use if we see, let's say, a high stress response, right? So if you're really, really stressed or you had some kind of traumatic experience, so your adrenals are exhausted, so this you can end up with adrenal fatigue. So obviously we try to nourish them. So there's lots of adaptogens that we use, ashwagandha, rhodiola. You probably heard some of this, yeah? I'm not sure if there are any equivalents in
Well, I mean, not really. As a pharmacist, I don't know much about natural medicine or any like herbal supplements, but I myself have been looking into this more. And I did some research on ginseng the other day. And I found that it can help with fatigue, it can help with memory, brain function, with sexual function as well. So I'm now seeing it, I'm getting into it. But honestly, I feel like I don't have, as a pharmacist, I don't have like much knowledge because a lot of what I've been taught at uni is, medication. But now, like you said, I'm learning about this adaptogens and more supplements, which are very interesting. But I'm generally interested in learning more about them.
Yeah, I'm not a herbalist, so because herbalists would study that in a lot more detail, but I can still use them in my practice. So, but I don't try to be more kind of simplistic about them, so I don't go into a lot of details. So I just try to go to ashwagandha, ginseng. There's lots of really nice herbal formulas available on the market that are specific for adrenals. So I would use them. I've got like a selection of really powerful ones that I know did help people in the past. Then I really like I use a lot because my day-to-day job with my clients is usually focused on the gut, on that microbiome. So we use a lot of herbal compounds to address the imbalances in there. So something that if we need to cure weeds, right? How do we do that? We don't go for antibiotics, right? Yeah. We go for natural antibacterial compounds. Okay. So we use things like alimet, which is or allicin, so which is an antibacterial compound in garlic, right? So it's an extraction. And oregano oil is very powerful antibacterial or antimicrobial. If we see any parasites in the stool test, we will use antiparasitics such as black walnut is very famous for that. Yeah, wormwood is another one. So we'll use a different combination because when I do the gut microbiome test, so we're looking at, how you digest food, how you absorb your nutrients. Lots of markers in the stool test can tell us so much about how your digestion works. We're looking at the presence of the flowers, presence of the weeds, their numbers, their ratios. We're looking at the immune system functionality within the gut. You probably know that the majority of the immune cells are located in the gut because everything you eat is considered outside the world, right? So you need the most protection here. So when you look at the gut microbiome and we see a lot of weeds, we will try to focus on the reduction of those weeds or killing the weeds, right? The lab would normally do a sensitivity panel. So they will take the bacteria, that type of bacteria that they found in you, and they will test it against all natural antibacterial compounds. That's impressive. Yeah, and they will tell me which one to use. So it's very, very personalized, very specific. So I will do an antibacterial program when I try to balance out the gut bacteria. Okay. So first we need to take out the weeds. Then we need to make sure the soil is really good, right? So really good quality. We need to fertilize it, right? And then we plant the flowers. Because if you have weeds growing out of control, there's no point of planting the flowers. That's probiotics. They're not going to survive. Okay. And then, so basically, for all of this, we use a lot of different supplemental compounds that are not vitamins or minerals. Things like slippery elm, aloe vera, licorice, right? Something that would build up the gut lining because you probably know that intestinal permeability, leaky gut is also a very big problem. So yes, I do. We call them nutraceuticals. So they're not vitamins, minerals, but something that we use in I like that. So this is kind of like, and okay. So you do believe in supplements and that they can be powerful if they can, for an individual who's done the right testing and consulted a professional. And what do you think about the trend of people going on GLP-1s like Ozempic? And do you think that people are overusing it for weight loss? And what's your perspective as a nutritionist for that? Well, it sounds like it's a miracle drug. Sounds like that. Yes, and it does work. It does work, yeah. It does work, right. So it's very interesting because I mean, you probably see that they put Weight Watchers in the bankruptcy, right? So Weight Watchers now disappear, right, because of Ozempic, right? And yes, indeed, lots of people are using it. And potentially, overuse it and abuse it. Yeah, I would say. So I know lots of young girls, some of them are my friends actually, that I don't think using them appropriately. Like they don't need to lose weight, but they're using it because they have fear of putting on weight or overeating. Unfortunately, it's I don't know. It's sad. It's sad.
Yeah, it's
But
quite sad.
yeah, but then my take is okay. If you really want to stop eating rubbish, want to eat healthy, and if this is how you control your appetite, but you work on your diet, right, and you start eating healthy, and it helps you, then yes, okay, then maybe take it for months, 3 months, once you get your diet sorted. And then you have to stop because look, if you stop it and you're still eating rubbish, you're gonna pile on the weight again, unfortunately. And you constantly have to be on that drug. But then guess what? A year later it will stop working and you have to increase the dosage. Now we also know about side effects, potentially side effects. I see especially Ozempic. So the other analogs are not as bad, like Wegovy or the Monjaro. Yeah, but from Ozempic, I saw that friend of mine. She was sick all the time. She was throwing up.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening in her guts, and all kind of diseases, gut conditions she may develop in the future, and that makes me sad to think about that.
Yeah. I think, like you said, it's a good drug, but people are definitely overusing it, and that's my opinion as well. So, if you had to design a perfect what I eat in a day meal for someone who wants to live until 100 years, what would it be?
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I suppose I can give myself as an example, right?
I mean, you have that perfect body, so please do give advice.
I practice intermittent fasting. I think fasting, it doesn't matter what kind of regime you choose. Lots of my clients do 24-hour water fasts once per month, so once a week sometimes, right? Some people do 3-day fasts. So again, you can try and, push your body and develop that regime. So if it works for you and if you feel great on it, yes, excellent, right? Because we do know that once your body goes into that, when you fast, first of all, it can turn on autophagy.
Okay.
So autophagy is when all of the kind of cancerous cells and bad type of cells, right, or ill cells or malfunctioning cells are getting cleared from your system, right? And then also we know that it has really beneficial effect on the diversity of your gut microbiome. So, and it trains your blood sugar regulatory system as well.
Yeah.
We used to think it was bad because it will turn on starvation mode and your body will start piling on fat. Not true.
Okay.
That is not
That
true.
okay.
So I would say yes, pick up the type of intermittent fasting regime that you can cope with. So for me personally, I do 16-8 every single day, right?
16-8.
So that means 16-hour fast, 8-hour eating window. But you have to do it every day. So I open my window at 12 and finish it by 8 p.m.
Okay, so and then you don't eat anything from 8 to 12.
Nothing that raises your blood sugar. No. If you take your body out of fasting, you stop fat burning and you stop all of the beneficial effects.
Okay. And from that period of 12 to 8, do you have 3 meals or is it 2 meals? Or
I have 2 main meals and a snack in between.
okay, fair.
So, and then obviously it's important to hit your nutritional goals. Right? You need to make sure you provide your body with all of those essential nutrients.
Okay.
So every single mouthful has to fight for its place on my plate. I'm not gonna eat something just for the sake of eating it. It needs to be given me either, some kind of health benefits or, provide me with my essential nutrients. So first, my priority is indeed protein.
Okay, protein.
Then it's fiber, so vegetables. I'm aiming to eat 1/2 kilo of vegetables that grows above the ground, non-starchy vegetables per day. Okay, so non-starchy just because if I eat potato, I'm just gonna put on weight, right? Because it's too much starch, too much carbohydrates.
Okay.
So everything grows above the ground that does not contain as many carbs or starch, right, compared to underground, like root vegetables.
Okay.
So
So overground, that will be any greeny, leafy
Salad,
salad, tomato,
tomatoes, peppers,
peppers.
broccoli,
Okay.
courgettes, cucumbers, all of that. So it's a lot of different vegetables.
Okay, there are a lot of options. Yeah.
And the third one is essential fat. This is super, super important that you get essential fat because your body cannot make it. This is why it's called essential. You must get it from the diet. The most beneficial one is omega-3 fatty acids. So
Omega-3
fish
fatty acids,
oil,
yeah.
And if someone is vegan, obviously it's flaxseed oil, walnuts, chia seeds, right? You can get it from flaxseed oil or ground flax seeds, right? Algae oil is another vegan version of omega-3 oil, of omega-3 fatty acids. So these are the main kind of must get.
Okay.
And then if I manage to get all of this, right, then I can afford myself something else. If there's any space in here. Okay. Sometimes just eating half a kilo of vegetables, gives no space at all. Right?
Yeah.
And then of course I take some of the supplements if I don't like the main supplements that I take. So I take NAC, which is an N-acetylcysteine.
Yes.
Not sure if you've seen that in your research, right?
Yeah.
So this is one of the most important nutrients that help us produce glutathione. Glutathione is a major detoxification compound that our liver uses for detoxification. So I always take that just in case. So everything out basically.
Okay.
Because it can detoxify heavy metals, plastics, and steroid hormones. So it's really, really kind of good for us. Then I do take hyaluronic acid.
Okay.
For the wrinkles. I take astaxanthin, which is what makes flamingos pink.
Okay.
You see that?
No.
Yeah, so astaxanthin is a very powerful carotenoid
Okay.
that comes from krill.
Okay.
So krill, they have pink color.
Yeah.
And then salmon eats krill. This is why salmon is that color.
Oh wow.
And then krill is also eaten by flamingos, so this is what gives them pink color.
Okay.
So basically, it's like a natural sun protection in the peel. So because it builds up in your skin and gives you that natural healthy glow, like tan.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's something else.
So, yeah. So I take that now. Gosh, what else do I take? I take liver support supplements always, like milk thistle, dandelion, artichoke. Again, good for the bile flow. Because again, our body detoxifies with the bile, so that's all important. What else do I take? It's a whole list. Yes, I take about 10 different supplements per day.
to live up to 100, you say good food, intermittent fasting, and some supplements.
Yes.
And what's one wellness trend you wish would disappear forever? You completely disagree with, you don't like it.
It's the calories in,
Calories in, calories out.
Yeah,
I thought you might say
I
that.
really hate that one.
Yeah, it's not about mathematics in this case. And then finally, I was gonna ask. Well, this is a fun one. I don't know if I think you can answer this. If you had to live off 3 foods for the rest of your life, what would that be?
Yeah.
Would it be the veggies that grow outside the ground?
You have to think about nutrient density here. Yeah, this is how, as a professional, nutrient density, the only criteria. So it would be chicken liver.
Yeah.
Because it's super, super nutrient dense, especially an organic one. Yeah, and gives you potentially everything you need. Right?
Okay.
And then probably broccoli.
Okay.
And I really like black grapes because again, very high in antioxidants and it's a bit of sugar, which I like as well.
Okay.
So these are the 3 things I would, eat. Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, I didn't expect that. I'll need to look into those foods. And can you, I know this is quite a big topic, but if you can briefly explain to me how Biodata, so using Biodata to create highly personalized nutrition programs.
Yeah, so Biodata is when, as I said before, when we need to know as much information about you as possible. So this is Biodata.
Okay, so genetic testing.
Genetic testing. So I need to see how your body works, how your cells work, right? It's very, very complex and it's highly, it gives us highly personalized recommendations. Like, for example, we just had matcha tea, right? So there is a specific type of antioxidant in there that can reduce the ability for a specific genetic enzyme to work completely, and it can be bad for many people.
Okay.
Which is, you wouldn't have guessed it. Right?
No.
But yes, green tea, any type of green tea will be contraindicated for these people.
Oh, wow.
And that's genetics, right? Now, other biodata is blood test. So this is the basics, right? Of course, we always start with the blood test. I need to know nutritional deficiencies. I need to know hormones. All of this is biodata. Microbiome is another biodata. How your body digests, absorbs nutrients. So everything I described earlier, when we do your stool test, what data we get, that's biodata as well. There is no point of me giving you a nutritional supplement if you're not going to digest it and absorb into your blood. It's going to just be expensive urine.
Yeah.
No. So this is why lots of people kind of, they're always anemic. They take iron supplements and then it's still not helping. So what is going on, right? Why are they not absorbing it in their blood? So this is what we need to know.
Okay, that's what biodata will kind of give the information.
Yes.
Amazing. And finally, I was gonna say, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, start their nutrition program, whether it is to treat their rare condition or weight loss, or due to some hormonal disbalance or anything, what's the best way to get in touch with you, and how can they reach you and learn more about you and essentially start their journey with yourself?
Well, my contact details are on my Instagram account. It's Olga Hamilton, Nutrition, all one word. So there is also my phone number as well. And so you can reach me either via text, WhatsApp, Instagram, it doesn't matter. Now I do offer 10-minute free consultation. So we call them discovery calls. So this is when we can kind of discuss whether I can help you or not. You can tell me about your problem, your symptoms, and I can suggest to perhaps start with certain testing first, or start with an initial consultation. When you book an initial consultation, I will ask you to complete nutritional questionnaire. So again, I need to know some basic information about you, your diet, your symptom presentation, everything you're trying before, medication, supplements, a family history. So everything is important, right? As much information as possible about you. And then second layer will be your test results. And then obviously we will review them, address the imbalances. So this is how I approach every single case. Amazing.
Perfect. Well, this brings us to an end. Thank you so much, Olga, for this fascinating, interesting, exciting, informative conversation. It's always a pleasure to speak with you and see you. Thank you for coming today, and hope you enjoyed it as well.
I did very much so. Thank you very much. Yes, so really appreciate that you remembered about our meeting and you invited me.
Yes, I did. I don't think I'll ever forget that someone who I just met and we talked about fecal transplantation. It's not something you talk about with everyone. But I hope you enjoyed this, guys. If you liked it, please remember to subscribe. And I release episodes every Tuesday, so please join me next time if you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.